the ultimatum and the laughter. The Crinder Armada descended upon Earth's solar system like a storm of metal and fury. 300 warships, each the size of a small city, emerged from the darkness of space with their weapons charged and their shields glowing with terrible purpose. At the center of this mechanical hurricane floated the Sovereign Fist, the flagship of Admiral Thexvon, a vessel so massive that it cast shadows across entire moons as it passed. Admiral Thexvon stood in the command chamber of his flagship, his six-fingered hands resting on the holographic display that showed Earth spinning peacefully below. He was tall even by Crinder standards, with deep purple skin marked by the silver scars of 100 campaigns. His 3 eyes, arranged in a triangle on his broad face, studied the blue and green planet with the cold calculation of a predator examining prey. For 70 standard cycles, he had led the Crinder expansion fleet across the galaxy, and in all that time, not a single species had dared to refuse his terms. The humans would be no different. They were young, barely having left their own planet's orbit in any meaningful way. The Crinder Intelligence Division had been monitoring Earth for 15 solar rotations, watching as the humans fumbled with primitive rocket technology and squabbled among themselves over resources and ideologies. They were divided, weak, and unprepared for what was coming. It would be a simple matter to bring them into the Crinder Empire, where they would serve as laborers in the outer colonies or soldiers in the expansion armies. Thexvon activated the communication array with a gesture. His image would now appear on every electronic device across the planet Earth. Every screen, every phone, every computer would show his face and carry his words. It was a demonstration of power that had worked on 400 worlds before this one. The message was always the same, and the result was always inevitable. His voice boomed across the void, translated into every human language by the sophisticated systems of the Sovereign Fist. People of Earth, I am Admiral Thexvon of the Crinder Expansion Fleet. Your world has been selected for integration into the Crinder Empire. You have proven yourselves a species of some capability, and thus you are offered a choice. You have 24 standard hours to surrender your governments, your military forces, and your industrial capacity to Crinder authority. If you comply, you will be given positions of service within our empire. If you refuse, your cities will be reduced to ash, your oceans will boil, and your species will be erased from the cosmos. You have 1 day. Choose survival. The transmission ended. Thexvon clasped his hands behind his back and waited. On most worlds, the response came within minutes. Leaders begging for mercy, populations descending into panic, military forces scrambling uselessly to prepare defenses that would never be enough. Some species took longer to accept their fate, but they all accepted it eventually. The mathematics of power left no room for defiance. 1 hour passed. Then 2. The communication officer, a young Crinder named Veshkal, looked up from his station with an expression of uncertainty. Admiral, we are receiving responses from Earth, but they are not what we expected. Thexvon turned sharply. Explain. Veshkal's skin darkened with confusion, a natural Crinder response to perplexing situations. The humans are broadcasting responses across their global communication networks. They appear to be creating humorous content about our arrival. Humorous content. Thexvon felt his third eye narrow in confusion. Show me. The main display filled with images and videos pulled from Earth's internet. Someone had taken Thexvon's image and placed a foolish hat on his head with the words, "Worst party invitation ever," written beneath. Another showed his flagship edited to look like a child's toy with the caption, "Mom, can we keep it?" A musician had taken the audio of his ultimatum and remixed it into a dance track that millions of humans were apparently sharing and enjoying. What is the meaning of this? Thexvon demanded. Is this some form of psychological warfare? A cultural analyst stepped forward, her face showing the same confusion that Thexvon felt. Admiral, it appears the humans are mocking us. This is not a defensive strategy. They are making jokes. Jokes. The word felt alien in Thexvon's mouth. They face extinction and they make jokes. The analyst nodded nervously. It seems to be a common human response to stress. They use humor as a coping mechanism. But the scale of this response is unprecedented. In the last hour alone, over 500 million individual pieces of humorous content have been created about our fleet. Thexvon turned back to the display, watching as more and more bizarre images appeared. A video showed children wearing cardboard boxes painted to look like Crinder ships, pretending to invade a playground. A comedian had done an entire routine pretending to be a confused alien trying to order food at a human restaurant. Someone had created a game where players defended Earth by throwing virtual pies at cartoon versions of Crinder soldiers. The game had been downloaded 30 million times in 2 hours. On Earth itself, the laughter was genuine, but it was also strategic. In a secure facility beneath the Swiss Alps, President Catherine Morrison of the United States sat at a table with the leaders of every major nation on the planet. For the first time in recorded history, there were no arguments, no territorial disputes, no ideological conflicts dividing the room. The arrival of the Crinder had accomplished what centuries of diplomacy could not. It had unified humanity completely. General James Chen of the Pacific Defense Coalition spoke first. The Mars installations are fully operational. All 6,000 ships are ready to deploy on your command. They still think we're stuck on Earth. Chancellor Dmitry Volkov of the European Federation nodded. The lunar defense grid came online 10 minutes ago. Every weapons platform is targeting their flagship. They have no idea we've been building there for 20 years. Prime Minister Amara Okonkwo of the African Union smiled grimly. The asteroid belt stations are in position. We can hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. And they think we're primitives playing with fireworks. President Morrison looked around the table at faces that represented 8 billion people. Keep the jokes going, she said quietly. The longer they think we're idiots, the more time we have to position everything perfectly. They came here expecting fear. Let's give them confusion instead. The jokes continued to pour out of Earth like a tidal wave. A famous director released a short film showing Crinder soldiers slipping on banana peels. A group of teenagers created a viral video pretending to welcome the aliens with an intentionally terrible song and dance routine. A scientist published a paper with deliberately absurd calculations showing that the Crinder ships were powered by hamster wheels. Back on the Sovereign Fist, Admiral Thexvon was losing his patience. He had never encountered a species like this. Every other civilization had responded to his ultimatum with terror, anger, or desperate attempts at negotiation. But the humans just kept laughing. It was unnatural. It was disturbing. It was beginning to make his crew nervous. Admiral, Vesh-Kal reported, we have intercepted communications from several human governments. They appear to be holding emergency meetings. Finally, Thexvon said with relief. They are beginning to take us seriously. Put the communications on display. The screen showed a meeting of Earth Security Council. The representatives were supposed to be discussing the crisis, but someone had forgotten to turn off the public broadcast. The world was watching as the Russian ambassador held up a crudely drawn picture. I propose we respond to the aliens with this ancient human gesture of friendship. It is a drawing of a hand with one finger extended. The room erupted in laughter. The American representative wiped tears from her eyes. That's not friendship, that's probably the most offensive gesture we have. Even better, someone shouted from the back. The Chinese ambassador raised his hand for attention. I suggest we all dress up as aliens for our next meeting. Show them we're not intimidated. The proposal was met with enthusiastic applause. Thexvon watched this display with growing disbelief. This cannot be real, he said. This must be some elaborate deception. But what purpose does it serve? His chief tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Raxthor, stepped forward. Admiral, I have been studying human history as you ordered. There is something you need to understand about this species. Thexvon turned to face him. Speak. The humans have a long history of warfare among themselves. They have fought conflicts that killed tens of millions of their own kind. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet multiple times over. And they did not develop these weapons to fight an external threat. They developed them to use against each other. The command chamber fell silent. Raxthor continued, his voice grave. For decades, the humans lived under constant threat of total annihilation. They had enough nuclear weapons pointed at their own population centers to kill everyone on their planet several times over. And they did not collapse. They did not go insane. They simply continued living, working, building, advancing. They learned to laugh while staring at their own extinction every single day. Thexvon felt something cold forming in his chest. What are you saying? I am saying, Admiral, that a species capable of living like that, a species that developed such a sophisticated sense of humor as a survival mechanism, may not respond to threats the way we expect. They have already survived the worst threat imaginable themselves. What makes us think they will fear us? Before Thexvon could respond, alarms began sounding across the bridge. Admiral, the sensor officer shouted, we are detecting unusual readings from the human planet. What kind of readings? Energy signatures, sir. Massive ones. They are coming from the surface, from the moon, from the 4th planet in this system. Our scans are being jammed. We are losing visibility. Thexvon's 3 eyes widened. Jammed? By primitive human technology? That should not be possible. The tactical display began flickering with interference. Large sections of Earth's surface disappeared from their sensors. The moon, which they had scanned dozens of times and found barren, was now showing energy readings that made no sense. And Mars, the red desert planet that should have been empty, was lighting up like a star. "Admiral, we need to withdraw," Raxthor said urgently. "Something is very wrong here." "Withdraw?" Thexvan's pride flared. "The Crinder expansion fleet has never withdrawn from a conquest. We will not start now." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. On Earth, General Chen looked at the countdown on his screen. 18 hours had passed since the ultimatum. It was time. "Operation Punchline is complete," he said into his communicator. "All forces are in position. Awaiting final authorization." President Morrison's voice came through clear and strong. "Authorization granted. Show them what humanity has been building while they were watching us play with rockets. Let's give our guests the surprise of their lives." Across human space, systems that had been hidden for decades began to activate. On Mars, camouflage fields dropped away to reveal sprawling cities and shipyards that had been constructed over 20 years. Ships began rising from concealed hangars, not the clumsy chemical rockets the Crinder had observed, but sleek warships powered by fusion drives that burned bright against the Martian sky. On the Moon, entire sections of the surface split open like flowers blooming, revealing defense platforms that had been buried beneath the regolith for a generation. Weapons that could crack a planet's crust swiveled toward the Crinder fleet with deadly precision. In the asteroid belt, mining stations transformed into fortresses, their industrial equipment reconfigured into weapons that could shatter moons. And around Earth itself, satellites that the Crinder had dismissed as primitive communication devices revealed their true nature. They were armed, networked, and fully operational, forming a web of firepower that enclosed the planet in a shell of protective fury. The Crinder fleet found itself surrounded, outnumbered, and completely outmatched. Admiral Thexvan stared at the tactical display in absolute horror as his reality shattered around him. The revelation and the choice. The numbers on the tactical display made no sense. Admiral Thexvan had spent 70 cycles conquering worlds, and he had never seen anything like this. The Crinder fleet consisted of 300 warships, each one capable of reducing a city to rubble in minutes. It was a force that had broken the will of countless civilizations across the galaxy. But now, surrounding his fleet from every direction, were thousands upon thousands of human vessels. "How many ships?" Thexvan demanded, his voice barely above a whisper. The sensor officer's hands trembled as he worked his console. 6,000 confirmed contacts, Admiral. "No, wait, more are appearing from the fourth planet. 6,200. 6,500. They are still launching." The bridge of the Sovereign Fist had gone completely silent. Every Crinder officer stood frozen at their station, staring at the display that showed their fleet as a small cluster of dots surrounded by an ocean of hostile contacts. The humans had not just hidden a few ships. They had hidden an entire armada, built in secret over decades while the Crinder watched and assumed the humans were fumbling primitives. Raxthor stepped beside his admiral, his scarred face grim. "They played us," he said quietly. "Every clumsy rocket launch we observed, every failed satellite, every primitive space station. It was all theater. They wanted us to see them as weak. And we believed it because we wanted to believe it." Thexvan felt something he had not experienced in 50 cycles. Fear. Not the simple concern of tactical disadvantage, but deep, primal fear. The humans had done something no species had ever done before. They had fooled the Crinder completely. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from Earth." The voice of Vesh-Kal broke through Thexvan's thoughts. "Put it on screen," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. The display flickered and a human face appeared. She was middle-aged with dark skin and gray hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore a blue suit with a small pin on her collar showing the symbol of Earth. Her eyes were calm, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath that gentleness. A strength that Thexvan recognized immediately because he had spent his entire life cultivating the same quality in himself. "Greetings, Admiral Thexvan," the woman said in perfect Crinder. Her pronunciation was flawless, another shock to add to the growing pile. "My name is Ambassador Elena Vasquez. I speak on behalf of the United Earth government and the 8 billion humans who call this planet home. I hope you are impressed by our little reveal. We have been working very hard to surprise you." Thexvan straightened, forcing his military discipline to override his shock. "This is a deception. Holographic projections designed to make us retreat. Your species does not have this level of technology." Elena smiled, and it was not a cruel smile. It was almost sad. "Admiral, your sensors are no longer being jammed. Please scan our forces as closely as you wish. Take all the time you need. We have 6 hours remaining on your ultimatum. There is no rush." The sensor officer looked to Thexvan, who nodded. The young Crinder worked his console with desperate speed, running every scan, every analysis, every verification protocol they had. After several long minutes, he looked up with eyes full of despair. The ships are real, Admiral. All of them. The weapons are real. The power signatures match or exceed our own technology. Everything is real. Elena's expression remained calm. As I said, Admiral, we have been preparing for this moment for a very long time. You see, we knew you were watching us. We found your surveillance probes 43 years ago. We studied them, learned from them, and then we made a decision. We could either panic and reveal our true capabilities, or we could be patient. We chose patience. For 4 decades, we showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. Thexvon felt his world crumbling. 4 decades. An entire generation of humans had lived their lives knowing that hostile aliens were watching, and they had maintained the deception perfectly. The discipline required for such a feat was staggering. You could destroy us right now, Thexvon said. Your fleet outnumbers ours 20-1. Why are we still alive? That, Elena said, leaning forward slightly, is the question I hoped you would ask. Because, Admiral, that question reveals that you are capable of learning. You are capable of adaptation. And that means there might be hope for you yet. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We could destroy your fleet. You are correct about that. Our weapons are locked onto every one of your ships. We could end this battle before it begins. But then what happens? Your empire sends another fleet. We destroy that one too. Then another, and another, until one of our species is extinct. Millions die. Maybe billions. Worlds burn. And for what? Pride? Territory? Resources that we could share if we simply learned to work together? The Crinder do not share, Thexvon said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Elena agreed. The Crinder take. The Crinder conquer. The Crinder rule through fear and superior firepower. We know this, Admiral. We have been studying your empire for 4 decades. We know about the 400 worlds you have subjugated. We know about the slave colonies. We know about the resistance movements that rise up and are crushed on dozens of your controlled planets. We know about the suffering your expansion has caused across the galaxy. Thexvon wanted to rage, to deny, to attack. But he was a military commander, and military commanders dealt in facts. The facts were undeniable. His fleet was surrounded and outgunned. Any attack would result in total destruction. And if Elena was telling the truth about how long the humans had been watching, then they knew things about the Crinder Empire that could be devastating if shared with the subjugated species. Yet you offer to talk, Thexvon said slowly. Why? Because we are tired of war, Elena replied. Her voice carried a weight of sadness that Thexvon had not expected. We humans have fought so many wars, Admiral. We have killed millions of our own kind in conflicts that, looking back, seem pointless and wasteful. We have nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. We know the cost of violence. We know how it hollows out a civilization from the inside. We know that victory through conquest is no victory at all. She stood up from her chair, and the camera followed her as she walked to a window. Behind her, Thexvon could see the blue curve of Earth, beautiful and fragile against the darkness of space. We could be conquerors too, she said quietly. We have the technology. We have the weapons. We have the will to survive. But we have also learned something that perhaps your empire has not. We have learned that the strongest civilizations are not the ones that can destroy the most enemies. The strongest civilizations are the ones that can turn enemies into friends. The bridge of the Sovereign Fist was absolutely silent. Every Crinder officer was listening to the human ambassador's words, and Thexvon could see the impact those words were having. His crew had spent their entire lives in service to the Empire. They had believed in the righteousness of Crinder expansion. They had never questioned whether there might be another way. But now, surrounded by a superior force that chose mercy over vengeance, those certainties were crumbling. What exactly are you proposing? Thexvon asked. Elena turned back to face the camera. We are proposing peace, Admiral. Real peace, not the peace of subjugation. We want to open diplomatic relations with the Crinder Empire. We want to share technology, resources, and knowledge. We want to help the species you have conquered gain their freedom and self-determination. And in return, we offer the Crinder people something they have never had. We offer them the chance to be part of something greater than an empire. We offer them the chance to join a true galactic community built on cooperation rather than conquest. That is impossible, Thexvon said. The Empire will never agree to such terms. Will they not? Elena asked. Think carefully, Admiral. You came here with 300 ships expecting an easy victory. Instead, you found a force that could destroy you completely but chooses not to. When you return to your empire with this news, what do you think will happen? Do you think the High Council will immediately send a larger fleet? Or do you think they will pause and wonder what else they might have been wrong about? She sat back down, her eyes locked on Thexvon's. Here is what I believe will happen, Admiral. You will return to your empire and report that Earth is not a primitive world ready for conquest. You will tell them that humans are a spacefaring civilization with technology that matches or exceeds Crinder capabilities. You will tell them that we seek peace but are fully prepared for war. And then, the High Council will have to make a choice. They can continue their expansion and eventually face a united human fleet that will oppose them at every turn. Or they can accept our offer of peace and begin the long, difficult process of transformation from empire to partner. Thexvon felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Everything he had believed, everything he had fought for, everything that had given his life meaning was being challenged by this calm human woman and her impossible offer. How do I know this is not a trap? He asked. How do I know you will not attack us the moment we lower our guard? You do not know, Elena said simply. That is what trust means, Admiral. It means accepting the possibility of betrayal because the alternative, eternal conflict and suspicion, is worse than the risk. We are offering you trust. The question is whether you are brave enough to accept it. A junior officer spoke up nervously from his station. Admiral, I am detecting movement among the human fleet. They are withdrawing. Thexvon looked at his tactical display in disbelief. The 6,000 human ships that had surrounded his fleet were pulling back, opening a clear path toward the edge of the solar system. The weapons platforms on the moon were powering down. The satellites around Earth were returning to passive status. The humans were deliberately making themselves vulnerable. Elena smiled. We are giving you a choice, Admiral. You can stay and talk with us, learn about humanity, and begin the process of building peace. Or you can leave right now, return to your empire, and report what you have seen. Either way, we will not stop you. We will not attack. That is our promise. That is our commitment to peace. She stood up again and placed her hand over her heart in what Thexvon recognized as a human gesture of sincerity. The humans have a saying, Admiral. We say that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in the face of fear. You came to Earth expecting us to be afraid. Instead, you found a species that has learned to laugh at fear, to face impossible odds with humor and hope. Now we are asking you to show the same courage. We are asking you to be afraid of peace and choose it anyway. The transmission ended. Elena's face disappeared from the screen, replaced by the tactical display showing the human fleet withdrawing to safe distances. Thexvon stood alone in the center of his bridge, surrounded by his officers, all of them waiting for his command. He could order an attack. The humans had withdrawn, given him an opening. His fleet could do tremendous damage before they were destroyed. It would be a glorious death, a warrior's end, exactly what Crinder tradition demanded. Or he could do something that no Crinder admiral had ever done in the entire history of the Empire. He could choose peace. Admiral, Raxthor said quietly, what are your orders? Thexvon looked at his old friend, the scarred veteran who had fought beside him for 40 cycles. He saw the same uncertainty in Raxthor's eyes that he felt in his own heart's. And then he made his decision. Open a channel to the human ambassador, he said. Tell her that I wish to accept her invitation. Tell her that the Crinder Empire is ready to talk. The bridge erupted in whispers and shocked exclamations. Some of his officers looked relieved. Others looked horrified. But Thexvon stood firm, his decision made. As the communication officer worked to establish the connection, Thexvon allowed himself a small smile. The humans had been right about one thing. They had laughed at his threats not because they were stupid or in denial, but because they had already won the battle before it began. They had won it through preparation, through patience, through the courage to show mercy when they had every right to show strength. And now, perhaps, they would teach the Crinder Empire something that could not be learned through conquest. They would teach them that there was more than one way to be strong. The screen flickered and Elena's face appeared again, her expression warm and welcoming. Admiral Thexvon, she said with genuine pleasure. Welcome to Earth. Let us begin building something neither of our species has ever had before. Let us build a future where the galaxy knows peace. Thexvon inclined his head respectfully. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, I am ready to listen. And perhaps, if you are patient with an old warrior, I am ready to learn. As the two ships moved toward each other in the silence of space, the rest of the galaxy watched and wondered. The Crinder had come to conquer Earth. Instead, Earth had conquered something far more powerful. Earth had conquered the idea that might makes right. And in doing so, they had planted the seeds of a revolution that would spread across the stars, transforming empires into communities and warriors into peacemakers. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation was beginning. And it had all started because humanity chose to laugh in the face of destruction and then offered their enemies something more powerful than any weapon. They offered them hope.